This episode is brought to you by Muntins Malts, a company that is passionate about providing premium malts to brewers worldwide. For over a century, Muntins has been a leading supplier of brewing and distilling malts, offering the finest British malted barley on the market. You can experience the difference Muntins offers by joining a recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club, because every kit that ships out now includes premium Muntins malt. You know, we've known the Muntins crew for a long time, and I can tell you, friend, you're going to love brewing with their grains. Ask your local supply shop to carry Muntins malts, or homebrewers can join our Trub Club at homebrewhappyhour.com/club, be a part of the community, and come brew with us. Thank you, Muntins, for supporting our efforts and homebrewers worldwide. Today's show is brought to you by hopsdirect.com. Grown in the esteemed Yakima Valley on the Peterball family farm, hopsdirect.com offers the widest variety of hops available online at incredibly competitive pricing. It's simple. They grow hops, they sell hops, and they ship hops straight from their family-owned farm to your doorstep. Producing the highest quality hops is hopsdirect.com's passion, and they're proud to be an independent grower in the craft beer industry. Go to hopsdirect.com right now and get what you need to make your brew day better. That's hopsdirect.com. Today's show is brought to you by Imperial Yeast. You hear us gushing over Imperial Yeast all the time, and that's because their yeast performs for us in every batch that we brew. Imperial Yeast is adored by commercial breweries and home brewers alike. Their pitch-right pouches are jam-packed with over 200 billion fresh yeast cells, guaranteed to deliver flawless, fast fermentations every time. Imperial Yeast strains are grown by a team of pro brewers and home brewers who live to help other brewers learn more and ferment better. Join any recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club and get a free upgrade to premium Imperial Yeast with every recipe kit that ships out to you. Learn more at homebrewhappyhour.com/club and come brew with us.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Stuck fermentation woes, dialing in decoctions, and comparing homebrew disconnects. This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 417. Well, hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. And if you, my friend, have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, you could go to homebrewhappyhour.com. You could email Joshua at homebrewhappyhour.com, but even better, you're going to call it in to 325-305-6107. Leave me a voicemail. You can leave feedback. I've got a ton of feedback. I'd prefer your voicemail question, and when I use it on a future episode, you get a gift card to kegconnection.com. It's that easy. It's that simple. It's that fun. It's that win-win. Just do it for us. I am one of your hosts, Joshua Stewing, joined as always by the Director of Operations at cmvector.com over there, Mr. James Carlson. And that's actually all who's joining me. Todd's in Portugal today. I think it's Portugal this, right? It was Spain last week, Portugal this week. And I guess he's already met up with our counterparts at CMB, hasn't he? They did that this weekend, I think, with Stefan, our buddy, who hasn't been on the show in a long time, but Stefan's been on it a couple times. Next time he comes to the States, we got to get him back on. Sorry, I'm dying.
Definitely.
I'm dying over here. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to confess to you. I don't know if you talked to Todd about it. I'm getting over the flu. I got sick Friday night, and this weekend sucked. I lost a lot of weight. I look good in the mirror, but then
No.
Oh yeah, it's good. But I
haven't had the real flu. You know, we have so many people, especially when you have employees. Everybody gets the flu every month, but I haven't had a real flu case in 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And the last time I did, it was horrible.
So I'm saying flu. I called my doctor. I've been going to this guy for about 17 years, and he regretted the day he gave me his cell phone number. And I actually now live in the neighborhood he lives in, so he really thinks I'm a weirdo. But on Sunday, I texted him because I was like, I knew they'd be closed Monday for the holiday, and I wasn't. My policy when I'm sick, James, is I'm like, it's going to be if I get sick, which I hardly ever do. And I know Todd loves it when I say that because I'm like, Todd, I never get sick. And then I'll get sick. Sort of, but this one knocked me down Friday night at like 9 p.m. I was like, oh no, I got the chills real bad for no reason. I was like, this is going to be bad. 12 hours is what it usually takes for me to kind of kick the average cold or something. And maybe 24. I'll give it 24 of just treating it either with over the counter or we're just raw dogging it with water and electrolytes and just rest. But by Sunday, I'm dying. And my fever hadn't gone away, and I run high fever, so I'm like hallucinating. My wife always freaks out because who are you talking to? I'm like, babe, shut up. Oh, I'm dying. Oh, Anyway, I texted him on Sunday and told him my symptoms, and he goes, well, I mean, it sounds like the flu, which by this point it'd be too late. So I don't know. There's not really much you can do for the flu that deep into it anyway, yada, yada, yada. By Monday, I was feeling good enough. I say good enough. I talked to Todd a bunch and was getting stuff done. And it was MLK Day and it was Inauguration Day. So I knew it was going to be a slow-ish kind of day anyway. And then Tuesday, yesterday, I had my laptop open and getting stuff done. And today I feel a lot better. I just sound terrible.
Good.
Yeah. But, and again, though, making light of it because I'm on the other end of it. And I did lose like 9.5 pounds of water weight. And at one point, and I know I'm dehydrated. So I know it's not a healthy thing, guys. And I know this is what like college wrestlers, high school wrestlers all do. They do this awful weight cut for competitions or whatever. For like 8 hours, I was shredded. I was like, I wanted to take off my shirt and go look in the bathroom mirror a lot. I was too cold to do it, but I was like, oh my God, I looked shredded because I had no water weight. I was dying. My kidneys were probably about to go into renal failure. Either way, just saying all that so you guys at home understand why I sound stupid or sound like death. I always sound stupid. But anyway, we do have a good show lined up for y'all. Todd is out of the country, so no one here to rein me in on the small talk, but I'm going to give you my promise, James Carlson. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. And then we'll get into a show with 3 packed questions. My friends, if you go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour and join a recipe receiving tier of the Trub Club, starting off 2025 with a bang, it's the best kit you can get. It's the Kolsch. I promise you're going to love it. Imperial Yeast just shipped it yesterday. We recorded this on a Wednesday. So yeah, yesterday they just shipped. We're going to have them at the end of this week, and recipes will go out the last week of the month using their strain, my favorite strain, Dieter. Hopstred has taken care of us with a ton of Hallertau Mittelfrüh and Muntins. We're using their lager malt, which if you're not using the name brand, James, I believe that's just Pilsen malt, right? That's what their lager malt is. So it's a very, it's a very straightforward recipe, and you can get it at homebrewhappyhour.com if the PDF, if you want to brew it yourself and source your own things, or the best deal on the web, go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour and join a recipe receiving tier. You're not only supporting the show, but you're getting the best ingredients possible. And I promise you, it's at the best price point. It's a win-win for everyone. January does happen to be one of our better months in regards to people joining. I appreciate all you who have joined thus far. And at every level, even if you're not at the recipe receiving level, we sincerely appreciate you. We could not do what we do without you. I do want to say, because of the winter storm and all that, I'm taking a day trip to teach one of the shipping ladies how to do the recipe kits and all that. So the Brew Day Live got pushed back. It is now going to be January 31st, 2025 at 10 a.m. Central. Join all the fun at youtube.com/homebrew happy hour. A little bit of a delay, but it's still going to happen in January. We're still committed to doing it. So come join the fun, youtube.com/homebrew happy hour. I didn't put a timer like I did on last week, but that was pretty quick. That's that's the small talk I had. Pretty stinking quick, man.
10 minutes.
Yep. 10 minutes of total record time. Last week, Todd held me to 2 minutes, and I got it done in like a minute 13. So I'm working on that. 2025, guys, new year, new me, or something like that. We don't have listener feedback. And actually, I decided, so I was going through, we do have a shortage of voicemails. And I was like, and we didn't have any voicemails that maybe hadn't been used or whatever. And I was like, I'm going to go to the database of emails because we have been, the email was the first way people were able to submit questions. And I was like, man, I've been using a lot of text lately. I haven't really, I use emails maybe one every other episode. Most of the time it's text messages. Let me go in. Oh my God, James, we have a crap ton of emails. A crap ton of emails. And actually in one, I didn't use it. I didn't use this, guys. Sorry, George. But September 2017, George had sent one and he opened it by saying, Josh, you look great with the shaved face. So that's how old of a database I have. That must have been episode 50 when I had shaved.
Yeah, I bet it was.
So I'm going to start doing better, guys, if you're emailing, because I forget not everyone likes the sound of their own voice. And also the emails I forget is when people get a little bit more technical with all that. So if you're emailing Joshua at homebrewhappyhour.com, I got your back. I'm going to at least try to do one every week. Now, this week, I'm just going to load it up. We got 3 great questions. So with that, let me get the gong of questions and get this show started. Our first question is an email from our buddy Sam from Virginia. And this isn't that old, I swear. But he wrote, "Hey, Homebrew Happy Hour. I'm a big fan of the podcast. Thanks for all the great advice. I've run into a problem with my latest brew, a honey wheat ale. Fermentation started off strong, but it seems to have stalled out for about 5 days. My original gravity was 1050, but it's been stuck at 1020 for over a week now. I've tried gently swirling the fermenter and raising the temperature a bit, but no luck. What might have caused this, and is there anything else I can do to get it moving again, or should I just bottle it as it is? Thanks in advance, Sam." There's a lot there. I don't know the style, so I don't know if 1050 is a standard starting for it. It doesn't matter. It's I
mean, it's a 5% beer, so that's just between 1045 and 1050 is pretty normal. That most of all my beers are going to be in that range, the ones that I do, and it hasn't happened to me in a while due to pressure fermentation because it's actually a little warmer. But it is very frustrating. And unfortunately, Sam, there's not a whole lot you can do. There's a couple of things. The most important thing is make sure your yeast is viable and you're pitching the right amount. So whatever you're using, if it's Zafel 05 or Imperial Harvest or whatever it is, just make sure that you're pitching the right amount and it's fresh. And it's, when I mean viable, over time, the yeast cells start to die off. So they may package, like the Imperial says 200 billion cells, and it says it right there on the pack. That's more than enough for 5 gallons of beer. But one of the other reasons why they do that is it stays viable for, I'm not talking a 10% beer. That's a whole other question. But most beers in that range, in that 5%, 4.5%, 5% range, you're going to be just fine. But as time goes on, as that pack of yeast sits in the fridge, aging, yeast cells start to die. And so the viability goes down. A couple things you can do. Use it as soon as you get it. If not, you can create a starter. And there's lots of things online. Just Google it, go online. BYO is a good resource. And they'll tell you how to do it. You can also go to Amazon. You can get a stir plate. I have one, and it's a stir plate, and it also has heat on it. So you can build cell numbers up a little quicker, or you can just put it in a what do they call that? The flask.
Yeah.
Erlenmeyer flask.
Erlenmeyer. Or yeah.
Erlenmeyer.
There you go.
You say
Yeah.
Yeah, y'all can correct me online. But so I put it in there, and I just add. You can add a certain percentage of DME or dry malt extract or liquid malt extract, and just grow those numbers back up. So you don't want to pitch too much, but you don't want to pitch little, because then you have lag time, and then it takes longer for those cells to duplicate, to multiply and get to a number that's going to be able to consume the sugars in the batch of beer that you have. Another thing that's really important, and there's lots of layers to this, is you've got to oxygenate your wort, because that's once you cool it down, if you're doing if you're doing all grain beer or even doing extract, you can use a spoon and just scoop it. Just scoop air from ambient air with your scoop. Take your spoon this way and just go gently into the wort. What you're wanting to do is you want to add enough, because the yeast has to have sugar, it has to have oxygen to multiply and get into the numbers to do what it needs to do. So those two things: make sure your yeast is viable and you're pitching the right amount, and make sure you oxygenate the wort, because when you get stuck at 1020, that's sweet, cloyingly sweet. It's up to you whether you want to keep it and bottle it.
I was about to ask you.
I mean, I have done that before, just out of sheer, there's no way I'm pouring this out, and then that, I only did that one time. And if it does it again, I just dump it, because it's like, it's not enjoyable. It's some people might like that in a stout or something like that, but me, I just don't like sweet beers. So,
I was looking at the style. I mean, I'm not looking at the style, remembering that it's a honey wheat ale. He might have that kind of like, okay, it's supposed to be sweet, but I bet it's going to have that like stay in your cheek sweetness to it, where like,
but a lot of people don't realize that honey is 100% fermentable. So just like table sugar or anything like that. So it sounds to me like you may have run out of some oxygen, or the yeast you had just wasn't viable and it didn't produce enough. It didn't multiply enough to consume the batch. So it's like a gas tank. You have to have all this stuff, and when it's out, and there's not a whole lot you can do. You can swirl it, definitely, and you might continue to do that, and just keep monitoring it. But if you swirl it and you're not getting any kind of yeast activity in a week, I know you said you'd been doing it for a few days, then you can either one or two things. You can deal with it and keg it or bottle it, or dump it and try again.
Yeah, and that's what is wild, and not wild. 5 days, I don't know what yeast he used. If I'm using Imperial, 5 days is already, my beer's done 9 out of 10 times. So it's like 5 days, and his says it stopped. It's not likely coming back. And I mean, obviously we know in this case it's not. He told us it's not. It's not worth it to you to open that up, dump, maybe sprinkle some a little bit of dry to try. I mean, I'm trying to think like I know you said there's not a lot you can do. I'm just trying to grasp at straws here.
If you've got some extra yeast and you want to sprinkle some on top, but the problem is, I don't think the problem, and I could be wrong. I mean, there's lots of variables that I don't know that is going on with his batch of beer. But if it's out of oxygen, you can sprinkle a pound of yeast on it, and it's just going to settle to the bottom, and it won't do anything. But give it another week and monitor it, because 5 days is still a little early. I know a lot of times people, especially back in the days when I was brewing beer in a plastic bucket, sometimes it wouldn't seal off. And I was slowly looking at airlock activity as fermentation process. And there have been times when I was, man, it's just not active. It's not doing anything. And I'll pop it open, and it actually, there's a krausen tail inside there, which means it had, if there's a krausen ring, then you had high krausen, you had fermentation. And then once you hit high krausen with the highest point of fermentation, it'll start to slow down. You could probably get it, a week to 10 days longer. You could probably get it into a range where it's drinkable. But at 1020, my personal opinion, this is just my opinion, It's not drinkable at 10-20.
Yeah.
It's just too sweet.
I know, like you said, it's subjective, but it's too sweet. 10-20 might be a little too much. But hey, Sam, what you're doing now, keep trying it for a week. You probably got time. Time is a beer's best friend. Just keep doing that. My pop, you're talking about oxygenating beer. We use, obviously we do the pressure fermentation, but when we're done transferring into the FermZilla that we have, and we're doing 10-gallon batches. So we're bringing in like 11 and a half gallons of wort. And, I say he mates me. I'm just showing him I'm young. I will grab the thing and just like shaking it like a strong man. And, that's been working for us. It's not going to work for me in the long run, cause I'm going to pull a disc or something, but no, normally I can leave it in there and shake it like that. But that is an underappreciated piece of advice for the health or the starting of a healthy fermentation is getting plenty of oxygen. I think we take for granted that like you'd have a whole smooth brew day and like, oh yeah, no, I'm dripping it into there. So that's creating it. Yeah, but not really. Like you cannot overdo oxygen in your fermenter when you're pitching the yeast. Now, obviously when fermentation starts, hey man, I don't want oxygen in there. Like I don't want to add into it to my beer. It's going to do that cardboard taste or whatever. But that yeast, it has that oxygen. It's like, oh yeah, let's do this.
And there's enough in the air to aerate it to where it'll make a big difference. But
yeah,
that's the one thing I did when we had Big Bertha. We were doing 40-gallon batches of beer. I had an oxygen stone, a carb stone connected to a 100-pound oxygen cylinder. And we were doing, we were pitching a whole case of White Labs liquid yeast. And I would run in that at about 2-3 PSI in there and swirl it around for, a couple minutes. And we never had any stuck fermentations. That always took off really well, but we were doing big beers, big gravity beers. And that was one of the main things that in everything I read, that if you're going to do big beers, we're talking 6, 7, 8, 9% alcohol. You got to have plenty of oxygen in the wort to allow the yeast to continue to chomp on those sugars and multiply. But when you're doing a smaller, like a 5% beer, just your spoon is enough agitation to get enough in there to let the yeast do their thing.
Absolutely. And also I've seen people make, these add-ons for their drills, like, so they'll sanitize the end. I mean, it's basically a mixer, right? A long-armed mixer that they're putting on their drill, and it's sanitized in there, and then and just start. Oh, it's the main point being though, just oxygenate your beer or your wort, and you will have a happy fermentation. But this is where I solicit you, friends. If you're watching at youtube.com/homebrew happy hour and you have some advice or feedback for this question from Sam, leave it in the comments below the video. Or if you're like the other 99.9% of people who only do audio and you want to get yourself a gift card at catconnection.com, call in your feedback to 325-305-6107. And if it's good enough, I will play it on a future episode, and I will go back to using voicemails. I promise. Sam, thank you so much for submitting that question. Moving on to question number 2. There's the gong of questions. It's another email, our buddy Kurt from Milwaukee, and he wrote, I'm a big fan of the show. I've been working on perfecting my German lagers, and I recently tried a triple decoction for a Munich Helles to really capture that traditional malt character. The beer turned out good, but it's missing some of the depth and richness I was hoping for. Could I be doing the decoctions could I be pulling the decoctions incorrectly? I've been taking mostly thick portions from it and boiling them from the mash and boiling them for about 20 minutes before returning them. Should I focus more on pH adjustments during the decoction or the timing of the protein and saccharification rest? These are big words, James. Also,
saccharification, that's just the alpha and beta, sugar production.
Yeah, that too. Are there specific malt choices that would work better for this process? I'd love to hear insights on how to get that perfect rich malt profile. Prost, Kurt from Milwaukee. Obviously, knowing Todd was out of town, knowing this was, I was pulling through emails. I was like, and it's about German lagers and decoctions. You're the only person I personally know besides Horst who has ever done a decoction, and it's for your alt beer. I don't even think you've done one for your lagers before. But
no, I have a couple times, but it just got to the point where it was just more unneeded effort. Today's malt is highly modified. So you got to remember back in the day before thermometers and all of that, the only thing they had to go by was body temperature. So we're 98.5 degrees or 98.6 degrees. So they would start off at that. And then also you got to think, because of the fact that they were using just floor malted malt, it was not modified, that the only way that they could get the malt ready for starch conversion or saccharification is to do it in stages. And that would get the enzymes inside the seed ready for starch conversion. So they would start out at around 99 degrees. They'd take a third, now 1/3 of the thickest part of the malt, and they'd boil it 15 to 20 minutes. They would reintroduce it back into the mash. That would therefore raise the temperature to the next stage. And they would do that as many times as they need to get to starch conversion. And that's how they brew beer. I mean, they didn't have any other way of doing it. In fact, and one thing I read is they knew when the heat coming off the mash starts to fog your glasses, then they knew that was where they needed to stop. And that turns out to be in the alpha range in around 155 degrees, give or take a few degrees.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. So they had a lot of these little things that they did over time, is just trial and error. And that's how they traditionally, especially Germans or anybody brewing beer, that's how they brewed beer. Now, today's day, we've got good malts. They don't need to do that. You can do a single, if you want to, when I do a Pilsner, I'm in the beta most of the time. And if I hit the alpha, it's only doing in a mash out. And sometimes I just don't even do a mash out. But every now and then I will pull, I won't pull a whole third out. I have a strainer that I use, and I put it in a 2.5 gallon stainless steel brew pot, put it on the stove, and I'll boil it. But here's the one thing it's very important. If you do it, you've got to stir it the whole time, because it's so thick and it has some sugars in there. It's easy to scorch. And if you reintroduce scorched malt into your beer, you're going to ruin the taste of it, just completely ruin it. So you've got to literally stand over it and stir it. And so if you want to do that. I don't think you need to do a triple decoction. And that was only because they had to have the protein rest, and then they had to go into the beta, and then they had to go in the alpha. That was one of the reasons why they needed to do that, is they got to get those that unmodified malt ready for starch conversion or producing sugars. So here's what I would do, is I would maybe split the mash step. I just go ahead and start around 145 degrees and do that for 35, 40 minutes. And then if you want to pull a third of that out and boil it, do that. That should get you in the alpha range, where it should get you some more body. Sounds like you want a little bit more body in there, and it's going to produce those. Remember, alpha is those long sugar chains. So the yeast eat the ends of it and leave the middle, and that's going to give you two things. It's going to give you sweetness, and it's going to give you body. So be real careful on how long you do that. I'd never do alpha more than 15 minutes because I don't want too much of that. And where in certain styles where you would want that would be like a stout. Typically, those are chewier, thicker beers, which means more protein, more sugar, more hops. They're not my kind of beer. And so I haven't brewed. That would be more, you won't know more about that than I do, but I would do that. I would do it two ways. Do a single decoction. Don't mess with doing a triple decoction. And then the second time you brew that, do the 145 and the 155 or 158. And I would do 45-15. So, and see if you see a difference. If you don't, then if you do, then I would still add that last step of doing your alpha sugars, because that's going to make that's going to give it a little more depth and a little more body and a little more sweetness too. So I'm just warning you got to be careful too.
Piggybacking on what you said about the modern malts, that's not just because I'm lazy, but I'm a modern man. I appreciate that it is like this, not throwing Kurt under the bus. I respect people who are trying to, do old world brewing, respect the style and all that. But I would make a bet if ancient brewers could have avoided that process and we're able to time warp to now and see like, oh my God, we could just do single infusion like this is fantastic. You know what I mean? Like they would love that. Like that. I think, like you said, that was just that they brewed like that back then because they had to. And that was out of the necessity of the limitations or the reality of the kind of grains they had and whatnot. But nowadays, we just don't have to achieve the end result. One of the videos that I'll every now and then get a YouTube comment in on and remind me that we did it. You had done that. You I forgot what you called it. It was a decoction for your alt beer, but you're very smart. You're making sure to tell people, listen, this isn't a true decoction. I'm doing this just to add some flavor.
Yeah. And I've done that a few times, but that was several years ago, and I just don't know if it's worth the extra effort to do it. And I'm sure there's people out there that say you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about, and that's fine. If remember one thing about theme of our whole show is if it works for you, that's the right way to do it. And I just don't know if that, I'm not going back on what I said in the video.
Yeah.
I just don't know if it's worth it.
Especially, and again, you can even qualify that. It's not worth it to us. It's not worth it to us. Kurt is doing triple. God bless you, Kurt. That's
that's a lot of mechanics in a brew day, especially if you're doing, all grain and 15 gallons.
And solo brewer.
Because we typically do 30 pounds of grain on a batch of beer. So you're talking about 10 pounds pulled out and boiled, and you're sitting over that, stirring it.
Yeah.
And reintroducing it raises the temperature. There's a lot of stuff going on. You're a busy dude.
Very busy brew day. But if it makes you feel more involved, that's fantastic. I would be more bummed if I did all that work and then I accidentally messed one part of it up and then the whole batch was messed up. I'd be like, son of a gun. No, just go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour and join a recipe receiving tier of the Trub Club. And we send them out to you without having to step mash like that and triple decoction or whatever. These kits are just ready to brew straightforward. And I say that step mashing, as in just changing the temperature and all of that, is actually something my father and I's grandfather does for us. So I'm truly a modern man when I say like, I am a privileged son of 2025 and technology. But one of those main things being, it is the best time ever to be alive as a home brewer because of just how easy it is to get into it without having to do all these steps. But if you are watching at youtube.com/homebrew happy hour and you still do decoctions, I can say that, and there's a reason for it, leave a comment below. Let us know why. If you just want to tell us we're idiots and wrong, leave us a comment. It helps the algorithm so much.
And I just add one last thing to it. There are homebrew supply stores that sell unmodified malt. And that is strictly for the purists that want to brew it that way. So if you want to try it that way, get online and see if there's somebody online that sells unmodified malts and do it old school way and see if it makes a big difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. That, like you said, and you said this, or the same sentiment during the first question too, where whatever works for you works for you. And in experimentation is one way to find out what works for you. So if there could be people who are like, you know what, that's a good point, James Carlson. I'm going to get some unmodified malt and try it. And they might brew the best batch of beer they've ever brewed in their life and then determine this is what I want to do going forward. I just want to use unmodified malt and this and that. But I bet you, that's not a lot of people. It's not going to be a lot of you, but prove me wrong. Leave a comment below, or you can always write in and all that. Or if you have questions, kind of like Kurt and Sam have had, call them into 325-305-6107. And when I use your voicemail on a future episode, reminder, you get a gift card to kegconnection.com. Moving on, Mr. Carlson, I'm flying through these. Question number 3, our third and final question of the show. The gong of questions brings us to our email from Dan from Minneapolis, and he wrote, I'm in the process of ditching bottling for a kegerator setup. Woohoo! And I've been debating which disconnects to go with, plastic or stainless steel. I think they do the same job. Are there significant differences? It seems stainless is most desired for things like faucets and kegs, but they are a lot more expensive online. So I'd like to know if they're worth it. I want to make sure my system is as reliable as possible. Any tips or recommendations would be appreciated. Dan in Minneapolis. And Dan, I have Mr. Disconnect here on the show, who is, again, when I know, I try to get balanced questions when it's you and Todd. Like, I'm going to get some draft questions from Todd and this and that. When I know it's just you, I'm like, oh, I know, I'm going to get the German lager. I'm going to get the Disconnect. But it is a good point. I don't even remember. Yeah. So CM Becker, as I have been doing the the catalog stuff and whatnot, I know oh yeah, we have ball lock and pin lock. That's obvious. And we have a gazillion different variations of that. But then I always forget about the obscure ones, like the check valved ones, and even the metal collared ones. There's ones that are not as popular on the retail side of things, but that are still manufactured and they're still bought more specifically from the wholesale side of stuff. But is there the plastic being used is obviously as it's been in the industry for many, many decades, so it's been proven. It's NSF approved and all that. It is safe. Is stainless steel not as important for a component like a disconnect as it would be for something else the beer is touching?
Save your money. Most stainless steel disconnects are $25 a piece. So you're talking about you can buy 5 CM Becker plastic disconnects for what one stainless steel does. And I don't know about the ones that I've seen. I mean, you got to understand they have to machine those parts versus a CM Becker disconnect is all from molds, and we have our own proprietary plastic, and it's a lot more heat tolerant than the Chinese disconnects. And in fact, we were selling on the Pico Brew on their Zomatic machine, and so they were. We would go through the boil process. It would flow through the disconnects. It's funny because they were trying to use the Chinese to save money, and they were literally melting off the keg.
Oh my God!
and so our disconnects are tried and true. They're acid safe, and sometimes stainless steel is prone to. Sometimes stainless steel is a good product. Don't get me wrong, but I just think. For the money, a CM Becker disconnect is a no-brainer. We know that it's going to fit on the post. Most of the stainless steel disconnects that you get now, they're machined in China. A lot of those disconnects, because of the fact that when you're running a machine, you have to account for tool wear, and that's called an offset. So when I was machining parts, I would have to stop because we were holding within 1,000th. And I would have to stop and measure and account for the tool wear. Well, when you're running parts cheap in China, they're not stopping for offsets or corrections for tool wear. So sometimes you can get a part, especially if it's stainless steel. There's a real tight tolerance between the two posts, between a liquid and a gas. And we've had samples come in. I don't know why they send us samples, because they know we make disconnects. And you can literally put them on either side, and that's not good because you don't want to put a liquid on a gas and gas on a liquid and flood your regulator. So I just don't know if stainless steel disconnects would be even close to being worth it. Save your money and spend it on a flow control CM Becker faucet or buy some grain for the difference. There's no reason to use a stainless steel disconnect because of the fact that they're so expensive. We have a good product. It's reasonable. It's easy to take apart and clean, and you can buy parts for it. I don't know if you can buy parts for a stainless steel disconnect. I think you just have to buy another one.
$25. I'd say I've never priced them. I've never looked into them because when I found this question because I did just a control find in my inbox, the database for disconnects. I saw this. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that those are a thing. And I didn't look them up, but I was like, I just didn't think about it because I never thought, I mean, I've always, even before Todd was associated with CM Becker, when he was a customer of theirs and we're in his backyard around the corner from here where I'm living. I remember, we've always used the CMB disconnects on everything. And actually, you probably heard the story when the original owner, Michael Korkish, went to visit him. And that's when he learned that Keg Connection was operating out of a backyard. Like he just showed up to Todd's actual house and knocking on the door. Yeah. I'm in the backyard washing kegs. Todd was like, I think Todd was on the road. He may have been there, but I remember Liz answering the door. Either way, I just never thought of stainless steel ones. Now, with that being said, there are, like I kind of mentioned, and I just thought it'd be worth touching on again, is it worth future-proofing yourself, and I'm doing air quotes here, with a check valve disconnect in any circumstance for a homebrew case? Are those ever worth it to spend the extra couple bucks on the check valve version of a disconnect for ease of mind that it's not going to backflow up to your regulator? Or I mean, I don't use check valve. I might have one in my little container over there, but I don't use a check valve disconnect. If someone didn't mind it,
I would say, I'm not to knock our product, but that's a pretty expensive disconnect too. The one thing about it is if you ever flood it and you have to take it apart, it's a nightmare to reassemble. And from time to time, I'll get emails from customers wanting, and I literally had to take a snapshot of the parts order because there's lots of little pieces inside that. It has a minimum opening pressure, and then it has a back check. That's why they call it a back check. So I think it has to have at least 4 PSI for gas to flow through it normally, but then it won't let anything come back in. So it's a double check valve. And they did that originally for soda, and that's what the original design for premix. Now everything's post-mix. Now it's a good way to safeguard flooding your regulator, but most regulators have a check valve on their shutoff anyway. So it's a good product. We make a good product. There's lots of little moving pieces. If you want to spend the extra money, in case let's say your regulator doesn't have a check valve, then I would say, yeah, grab one of those, and then you won't have to worry about flooding your regulator. And then if you ever do flood the disconnect, then you can certainly email me. All my contact information is at cmbecker.com, and I'll send you an illustration showing how to assemble that back together. Or you can just get a regular grade disconnect and for $5 and be done with it.
We'll just have to make that as a proper diagram. I bet people would actually appreciate that because I did, obviously, if y'all missed last week's episode, the future of kegconnection.com, I won't give any spoilers, but we're not running kegconnection.com anymore. So I was about to say, I do see those orders come in from time to time. I haven't all week. Oh yeah, because I'm not looking at orders. But
well, that would definitely be something that need to be put on cmbecker.com.
That's what I was about to say, but it needs to, yeah, exactly. On the listings though of parts or whatever is where we'd have those diagrams. And I was thinking, oh, we never put that there. Oh yeah, I've never had to. But yeah, we have animated videos for the faucets. I was telling Todd, man, we gotta get one made for the disconnects because not the check valve ones, the standard ones, people realize how easy they are to, if you have to work on them, which, knock on wood, I've maybe twice in almost 17 years of personal disconnects have I had to actually get to the point to taking them apart. And one of them was because, Joe, when we had Homebrew Supply, had recommended that my dad and I dry hop directly into the keg that we were serving out of, and then just got hot particulates, that entire thing, and it was disgusting, and all that.
Yeah.
The hot particulates kind of...
Not without a bag, I wouldn't.
Yeah, I know. I live and learn, okay? But the hot particulates kind of got all cruddy up in the that disconnect. And I remember taking it home and taking it apart. Super straightforward and super easy to do.
Yeah, I mean, you could take those apart with a freaking butter knife.
Yeah,
I mean, they're easy to take apart. There's like 3 pieces. You have the lid, which is the part you unscrew. Then you have a gasket, a spring, and a little the internal valve that shuts off. I'm drawing a blank. We have a term for it. Stem. We call that a stem. So there's a little plastic stem with an O-ring. Spring goes on top of that. Then you have the gasket for the lid and the lid, and that's it. So you can take them apart, clean them. They're durable. The plastic is very well designed. The properties of the plastic are designed just for that. It's tough. It's food safe. They're NSF certified. They're acid proof. And they're just a good product. For the money, you can't beat it.
Yep. And yeah, summing up the answer to the question, save your money on stainless, get the plastic ones from CM Becker. Make sure they have that CMB stamped on them. Not it's not as egregious as it used to be, but I remember like 2015-ish, or maybe you've seen it. Because how long have you been with Todd? Since 2015 or 2016?
2015. This year will be 10 years for me.
10 years. You've seen it too, but even like I remember, I guess it would have to be 2015 because that was right when Todd had gotten CM Becker.
August of 2015 is when he bought it.
So yeah, so like 2016-ish, being more in tune with seeing China flooding the market with imitations. Now there's much more reputable companies that are making it using Chinese stuff still. Not knocking that. I'm just saying though, remember the days of China just getting the disconnect and trying to mold it and then ship it out. And like even some of them though, trying to replicate the CMB stamp for a while in the early days, we're like, wait a second, that's not CMB, that's CWD. Like that way.
Well, I tell you what we run into more than anything else is we run into people selling, they'll have the ad. We saw a lot of this on Amazon where they'll have our product pictured. And then when they come in, they're not the same thing. There's no logo, NSF logo on it, any of that. And the dead giveaway is the color. You know, if you have one of our disconnects, we use a different type of plastic for the locking collar than we do for the body. And if you get one in and they're the same shade, like they're both shiny, that's not a Seambecker disconnect because ours, you can tell immediately.
Yep.
The locking collar is kind of it's what's the name I'm thinking of? It's a satin finish, and then the body is shiny, glossy.
Yeah, it's a glossy, and I would say the other one's like more or matte, right? Like a matte. Like a
that's
matte.
What it
yeah,
is.
It's a matte.
And that's
finish.
because there's a higher percentage of we use FRP fiberglass reinforced plastic in the collars because it has to be that way because it's operating those little balls, and those balls are stainless steel, so it has to be. You have 4 balls, 2 on each side, and the locking collar. When you pick up the locking collar, it allows the balls to fall into a deeper groove on the collar, which means they come out of the body and they come out of the lip around the tank post. And then when you push it on, you push it back in place, it locks those in, and they lock the tank post to the disconnect. So those collars have to be made of more durable material than the main body because they're having to deal with the stainless steel ball bearings inside there that keep the disconnect on the post.
Absolutely. So Dan, or if anyone is watching, again, if you're watching at youtube.com/homebrew happy hour and you have some suggestions or any feedback on this question, leave it in the comments below. And final solicitation, if you have feedback, but preferably a question for a future episode and want to get yourself a gift card at catconnection.com, call it to 325-305-6107. Dan, thank you so much for submitting that question. And Mr. Carlson, thank you so much for your time today, my friend. I appreciate your time, and I'll see you on Friday.
Cheers.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, you could email joshua@homebrewhappyhour.com. But no, have I said this already this episode? You're going to call it in to 325-305-6107. Thank you to our show sponsors like Muntins Malt, premium grains for a better brew day. If you aren't already using Muntins, give them a try by joining the Trub Club at a recipe receiving level. For the best hops available online, give our friends at hopsdirect.com a visit and pick up what you need for your next brew day. Also, get a pack of Imperial yeast along with premium recipes from us when you join the Trub Club. Go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour and come brew with us. On behalf of the absent Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thanks for listening.